What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Sonotech once again, and joining me today is Andrew, the co-founder of Meowcoin, which has been one of the top gainers actually recently on all proof of work coins, and one of the top gainers across cryptocurrency as a whole, going up 558% over the past 7 days, and definitely making some waves. So, welcome to the show, Andrew, and thanks for stopping by today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So let's get a little bit of a background. Congratulations on the success of Meowcoin here in the recent weeks. So that's impressive as far as that goes. Do you think that is mainly community driven, or are there any other indicators that you think contribute to that?
Yeah, look, we've tried to pin it down ourselves. We think obviously there's some community involvement because people are trading that have been part of the Meowcoin community for a while. But a couple of us are sort of thinking that there might be some larger macroeconomic stuff going on with proof of work coins sort of being in a positive headlight at the moment. Because we weren't the only coin that moved. We were one of several proof of work coins that sort of pushed up, and we think we were part of that whole wave being swept up, which was really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of almost been staggered, right? We saw Caspa kind of start the first run, then it kind of held above 3 cents, and then we saw, what was it, I don't think Radiant was it Radiant or Neoxa first? Either way, or not Neoxa, Nexa. Neoxa went up though too, but I think it was Radiant and Nexa together, and then we kind of saw you guys come up with Neoxa, and I do think you're correct that it's a little bit of a macro adjustment for proof of work coins going on there. So to get back to Meowcoin, what made you guys decide to create Meowcoin? What's the purpose behind it?
Yeah, look, that's a good sort of story. It's just sort of all the way back to just before the merge happened, and a mate and I were sort of sitting around a computer having a chat, and we were kind of trying to come up with sort of things and ideas of how do we contribute a bit more, because we're very passionate miners. We really think that mining is an important part of the ecosystem. We'd sort of say it's paramount in one sense. We think proof of work is the best consensus mechanism. And both of us have rescue cats who we were sort of watching and talking over Discord about. And I watched mine do something really dumb and was sort of relaying what was going on. And we then sort of started to talk about the fact that they were rescue cats and where we got them from. And the conversation sort of evolved with, how about we did something where we could actually help some of the animals that were sort of being impacted by COVID and being, shipped out of their location into different shelters and stuff like that. And then sort of what we then came up with was this concept of, it's not just the animals that are impacted by it, but it's also the shelters have, quite a lot of work that they need to go into to house them. And it evolved to the point where we sort of came to the idea of, what if we had a opportunity to tokenize animals on the blockchain? And in the process of doing that, what if we could sustain that by basically producing a piece of technology for the shelters that would, be free and valuable for them? Because obviously a lot of shelters run without a lot of money, which is, a challenge that they face. So we sort of built this idea of, what if we had a blockchain where miners could mine on it, and they knew that there'd be a percentage of the block reward go to donating towards the animal shelters, and we would work to tokenize on the blockchain the animals that were going to be adopted. And then the sort of last piece of that puzzle is, we had a couple of people, as we were sort of discussing it amongst ourselves, a guy actually mentioned to me, he said, if you're going to do something like that, you should think about pedigree pets as well. Because obviously the family tree for breeders is really important. That's something that blockchain could help with. So we sort of wrapped this all up together and thought, why don't we build this out as a project? And then we sort of teased around the idea, and we just ended up on Meowcoin because, who doesn't love cats, right? So, well, some people don't, I guess, but most people do. So yeah, that's kind of the story. It was really that sort of organic sort of, you toss around a few ideas, and then the ideas become quite captivating, and then they build. And the purpose and the meaning behind it is, because we love mining and we knew that the merge was coming, we wanted to try and create an ecosystem that other miners could get into to remain profitable. and we have some layer 2 options that are coming and some other development that we're getting to as well, because we want to build out a small ecosystem where the layer 1 has meaning, but the layer 2 is being built on that layer 1 can sort of feel good about the idea of what they're putting their software on. So that's sort of the reason behind it.
Okay. So, I mean, I'll dive a little bit into technicals, of course, here. It is a fork of Ravencoin, right? A clean
Correct.
fork. I've definitely reviewed the GitHub and so on. So congratulations on that. It's not like you got a whole bunch of references left over from Ravencoin or anything like that. And then you're using ProgPow for the consent or the algorithm, right? The mining algorithm. And then
Correct.
you got a 60-second block time with 3,000 as a reward. Now, is that a decreasing reward? Is there a halving rate on that?
There's a standard halving rate after 4 years. So we maintain the same emission schedule that Ravencoin does possess. And we thought that was important as well.
But you started at a lower reward, right?
No. So we are at 5,000 block reward, and we keep 2,000 for what we call the dev wallet, which is the donation element, and then 3,000 goes to the miner.
Okay, yeah. All right, perfect. I understand that. So when it goes through the halving, then it'll get cut down to the 2,500. And how much does that reduce the dev reward?
Down to so my maths is, that means it'll be, I think, 1,500 to the miner and 1,000 to the dev, I think.
Okay.
Thinking of maths. Yeah.
I
should pull a calculator out.
Okay, cool. And then the weekly donations go out or from the dev wallet to whatever project you decide to send it to, and then you make that public on Twitter and other outlets as well.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Cool.
So at the moment, just due to the way that it's done, we have to convert it from Meow to Litecoin because the giving block only receives certain coins. That's a longer story, but we can get into that if you want.
Yeah, sure. And then right now it says the network's at 271 gigahash. I think that's gone up though pretty significantly, hasn't it? Let me check mining pool stats.
Yeah, we're at probably 50 for 4 months.
And it says 329 gigahash a second on the network right now. I think it's about right, with Woolly Pool in the lead and our plant in second as far as mining pools are concerned. So that's cool. And then I think that pretty much covers it. Obviously, we talked about price in the beginning. What made you guys decide to go with Ravencoin and fork off of that?
Firstly, we think the technology is fantastic, and we know that it's also a fork a long time ago of Bitcoin. So we wanted to sort of keep in that family in that sense. I sort of think that that's important. We also really love the fact that there's tokenizing asset layer, which is a really powerful piece of what we're trying to produce, which is obviously tokenizing animals on the blockchain. Having that without having to mess around with smart contracts just to me seemed like a really sensible thing. So that was the reason why. My partner and I, we were also Raven Maxis for a little while, so we spent a fair bit of time in the Ravencoin Discord and really liked that community and got to know ProgPow quite a lot. And yeah, so we sort of thought we'd go with something we were familiar with as well.
Cool. All right. And then, so when you talk about burned Meowcoin, is that the dev wallet or essentially, and then you take that, you convert that to Litecoin. And when you do that, is that part of the burn process? Am I understanding that correctly?
So the burning is the same as standard sort of ProgPow where assets burn that part. What we end up doing is we have a couple of small people who are interested in investing and supporting the project. And so what happens is we'll complete a couple of over-the-counter deals, and that comes back in Litecoin, and we then send that on to the giving block. The reason behind that is the giving block is a wonderful opportunity, I think, for crypto to engage with charitable or philanthropically minded organizations. The challenge around it is it's based in the Gemini exchange. So unless you're on Gemini, you can't be part of the giving block. So part of our roadmap, obviously, at a longer term focus is to get on Gemini, so that eventually we're actually just donating in Meowcoin, and the actual receivers can then convert that at their leisure.
Got you. Okay, cool. So I think from there, I was curious as far as going with proof of work. Does that offer any regulatory benefits for what you guys are trying to do?
It's looking like it will. we think that obviously the proof of stake challenges the security laws, obviously. So there's obviously some things there that are problematic that are being sorted out. Again, that's why we think proof of work is this little bit of a pump. Well, that's my personal view of it. I think what it does is in Australia. So I'm from Australia, in case you haven't noticed. And my partners in the US, we've sort of noticed that between the two countries, proof of work sort of has a similar kind of regulatory basis to be consistent with. So we felt like that was a good idea to work with proof of work there. And just in general, proof of work isn't ruggable. We can't rug the whole thing, whereas proof of stake, there are instances of that happening. We felt like there were two things around that. One, we wanted that security that people knew that we couldn't do that, firstly, to work with. But two, we wanted participation because community is important. And we wanted to build a community that was behind the project. And obviously, miners mining create that. We think that one of the reasons, well, I personally think one of the reasons ETH was so successful for such a long time was it had miners mining on it. And I personally believe that mining communities are the bedrock of cryptocurrency. So,
yeah, along the lines of like what Bitsby Trippin says and all of that, for sure. And you're part of that community, so I'm sure you've run across him a couple times. And I mean, it's interesting because I think it was earlier this week, Hillary Clinton came out and said basically like mining is the actual threat to destabilization of currencies, and pinpointed mining, which was kind of funny. I talked about that on my show. I don't know at this point what time this will come out, but I talked about it previously on my show because I thought it was really interesting that it does seem like from a government perspective, right, a federal government perspective, they're starting to catch on to where it's like, specifically what she said is like, there's no way to shut it down. If someone decides to mine, we can't, it destabilizes the currency.
yes.
Proof of stake doesn't do the same thing because you have to have an inlet of fiat currency for proof of stake to work. So I think we might start to see governments shift the way they're approaching them. You know, I think here recently we had like the SEC come out and say like, you know, proof of stake is definitely a security, but proof of work is a commodity. I'm wondering how much those definitions change further on down the line as they come to this realization that like, if I am in a geographical area where I'm not allowed to purchase cryptocurrency, I can still purchase a piece of equipment, whether that's a CPU, a GPU, a ASIC, an FPGA, whatever it is, on the general consumer market and turn that into cryptocurrency and then exchange that right away. And I never have to touch. That's my inlet. And I don't have to touch. If I'm using cryptocurrency to purchase those products, I don't even have to ever touch the fiat currency, which means then you've completely eliminated that from the equation, right? It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it is fascinating. I think more of those discussions are going to sort of start to emerge. I think the only thing I'd say is I think that they have missed the boat in so many ways. There's no way to police a GPU usage. There's no way to police a CPU usage. So in that sense, it's the threat might be there or not, depending on your philosophy of it, but just trying to stop it and monitor it or somehow regulate it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible. And I think that was one of the genius pieces behind what Satoshi did is he knew that as long as computers were going to be around, mining can be a feature of that. And that's really important, I think, because personally, that's one of the liberating factors of cryptocurrency that I'm very much for. I believe in giving people the opportunity to free themselves from a banking system that is essentially pitched against them.
Right, and it's I equate it to kind of a similar industry as far as the war on drugs, where like as soon as you try to squelch one, you're just gonna have 50 more pop up. Like you could try to cut down or shut down every single IP that's ever hosted a Bitcoin node, and somebody's just going to pop another one up. At some point, you just have to shut down the entire internet, which is like not going to happen at this point because all of the systems that the government uses for military, et cetera, run on that. So how are you going to really regulate that, right? It's nearly impossible. It's the same thing as all the peer-to-peer networks that have been around, even like Mega Upload, or you go to like BitTorrent and all of that sort of stuff. It's like you shut one down, you shut down a Pirate Bay for a time in a season and another one pops up, right? It's not something that you can control. And so to kind of act like you are going to be able to control it, I think from people that are in the industry, it sounds kind of laughable, right? It's like, all right, go ahead,
Absolutely.
try to do it, but it's not going to work, right? I think adoption, though, is something that can definitely be, if you scare people enough, then you slow down adoption, right? So if you say, you know, it's illegal to do this, then it scares people off. But just like Pirate Bays and the peer-to-peers and the mega uploads, if there is a significant enough need to participate within that, then people will participate within it, right? And it'll get that kind of thing where you get a slap on the wrist from the ISP, and then you start using a VPN, right? And that's kind of the route that ends up
Absolutely.
going, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's disappointing to me that there's such little self-reflection on why people are using it. I think that's the thing that is staggering to me. Like, I can't understand how they'd be faced with this challenge that they perceive and not sit there and go, how did we get to this point ourselves, and what part did we play in that? You know,
right.
like, have a think. You know, it's such a disappointing element to it all, I think.
Right. Well, from the regulatory perspective, it's like we've put people in a position economically where they're looking for ways to actually store some sort of generational wealth, and there is no other way to do it anymore, right? You have real estate regulated to hell and gone to the point to where most people, individuals within younger generations, are never going to own real estate or property, so that's pretty much out of the question, right? So how are you supposed to pass that down to your your kids and future generations? And if you look at it, it's like, okay, well, Bitcoin could work, right? Because I don't think it's less likely that Bitcoin disappears than any given fiat currency at this point too, right? Especially with everything being brought into question surrounding the US dollar and it become de-dollarization going on right now, all the talks with BRICS and everything surrounding that. I think that you would be a fool if you were to say that the US dollar will continue into the future as the world's reserve currency indefinitely, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to change, and we're all seeing the changes happen, right? I mean, there wasn't, what was it, 2 weeks ago or something like that? There was a deal being done where it was South America, and I think in China used the either part the South American currency there, and part of the yuan to settle the actual deal. And France did it as well, I think, with China for a gas deal as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's starting to
France, I
happen.
think, came out this week. The president of France came out and basically was like, we need to separate ourselves from the US and from the US dollar. And I know, like, a lot of people, I think, are blind to this fact, especially that live in the US. It's just a given that they'll always be the number one country, right? Or we will always be, because I live here. When in fact, if we look at what reality is saying, it's saying, no, that's not going to happen. And it's interesting to also see the plays that other countries made surrounding Bitcoin, where you had a complete 180 reversal in Russia after the sanctions. And all of a sudden it was like, no taxes on Bitcoin and it's completely legal, right?
Yep.
And that's to protect their oligarchs, right? Because if they can protect them from the sanctions, then they can continue to generate funds. And it's important to understand that you can choose whatever side you want, but the reality of the situation is that means that there is this thing that is set apart from borders, right? That's going to enable people to move outside of being regulated within one fiat system, right? And that is very powerful. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the future.
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. It's a interesting story to be watching, that's for sure.
It's moving way faster than I thought. So I think as far as the Meowcoin platform goes, I think I covered all of the questions that I had in particular, as far as, like, why the fork? Why did you guys choose, I guess that would be a good question. Did you make any modifications to ProgPow when implementing it?
No, and we were very specific about that at the time. One of the reasons why is at the moment it's a lot easier to get Meowcoin listed with exchanges or with pools, because the ability to do that on the pool or exchange's behalf is a lot easier, especially if they've seen something like a
Right.
Meoxa or a Ravencoin. So those challenges there make it us a lot easier to adopt. That's not to say down the line that we won't try and tweak it somehow a little bit to personalize it a little bit more. We've sort of toyed with the idea of having it called Meowpow, because why not,
Right.
go with it. But yeah, at the moment we haven't got any plans in place to change it in the immediate future. And that was a very deliberate reason.
I've kind of looked at I like ProgPow from the perspective of like, it's definitely extremely difficult, if not impossible, for it to ever go ASIC or anything along those lines. However, right, I'm a miner in Texas, right, and the heat is insane, and ProgPow does hit those cards extremely hard because you're hitting memory, you're hitting the core. It's kind of, I definitely have some issues there as far as that's concerned. I do wonder if there's ways to modify that at some point to where you kind of reduce the stress on the GPUs, but I haven't looked into it personally enough at this point. But that's a change I'd like to see at some point with ProgPow.
Yeah, look, and I'm in the same boat, right? Australian summers are in their hit. It's like death. But so we had my original setup was in my back room, which is pretty common for most home miners. Oh my gosh, it was like the walls were melting. And then I eventually actually got it out of my house into like a little storage unit, which was framed in metal, and that was just as bad. It was like you could you could just see the sweat and condensation from the walls. So it was pretty crazy. Yeah. So in that sense, I agree with you. I'd love the opportunity to. I wish I was technically capable and proficient enough to actually engage with that and go, yeah. But yeah, I'm not quite at that level, unfortunately. So
I'm not either, so don't worry about it. I'm the idea guy thinking about it, right? Just from personal experience as far as that's concerned. But super impressive on the 551% over the past 7 days, a unique project. So congratulations on that. Super nice to meet you. Is there anything else that maybe I missed that you wanted to mention or talk about?
That nothing major. We have got a couple of cool little things coming up very soon. So Emporium launches this week, which is our NFT marketplace. So we're very excited about that. And that is the stepping stone to getting paw print up, which is the adoption technology that we've got. So they're sort of the things that are coming. P2B launches on the 30th, I think it is as well, which is awesome. So we're making inroads, but we're very grateful to have your time, and grateful for the community and people who've supported us to get here, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We love people, and we love miners in particular, and we want them to have an ecosystem they can mine profitably, and that's really important to us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great meeting you. Hopefully we can talk again, and maybe we can just pick a random topic other than Meowcoin next time and kind of get into the nitty gritty. I guess that is the one question I did want to wrap up with. You mentioned that you're a miner. Are you currently mining Meowcoin 100% of the time? And what does your farm look like right now?
Yeah, I've got 29 GPUs split amongst mostly 30 series. So I was crazy enough to get in when GPUs were as rare as hen's teeth. And I really love the idea. Built 4 rigs. Technically, I've got a 5th, which I call Quasimodo. It's my little mutant that I've got a 10 series that someone gave me, 1070. And I feel like I'm in Back to the Future with that thing. Like, it's awesome. So yeah, I currently part mine Meowcoin, and I've split my rigs across Flux, Radiant at the moment, and Nexa. So they were the sort of 4 things that I want, which is about equal hash rate. So I wanted to secure obviously the Meowcoin network, but I love the projects that are sort of up and running at the moment, particularly Flux. So we're obviously part of Flux Labs as Meowcoin, and I really enjoy supporting them. And I think that they've got a hugely compelling and powerful sort of proposition to bring to the world. And I really like Radiant and Nexa. I'm all about supporting new projects that are coming up and helping them with securing their network so that they can have success as well. So that's sort of what I'm on at the moment.
Yeah, and I think Nexa is pretty similar to y'all from a code and mining algorithm standpoint. And I think I'm going to have Paul Church on tomorrow. As far as for you guys watching, I'm actually not sure if Paul's going to come on specifically tomorrow on the channel or later on down the line,
Yeah.
depending on what's going on. But we have a lot of GPU releases. I got ASIC releases coming out. I got a ton of review videos to get done. So we'll just see where all these land in the mix of things. But thanks for coming on. And where can people find you?
So you can come and find us at Discord. So we can send you some of the links to put in the video channel as well. So we've got Discord, Telegram. We've got a website, mewccrypto.com, or check out emporium.net. And they're the main ones that you can check us out on. And our Twitter handle is Meowcoin2023 as well. So come check us out. And we'd love to sort of have you along and watching along.
Cool. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next Tuesday. Today's sponsor is myself. I recently launched a crypto mining e-course at sonofatech.com, and it includes 9 steps to cover when you decide to start your crypto mining journey. This is specifically pertaining to 2023 crypto mining profits and taking advantage of the down market to achieve skyrocketing growth as we move into the next halving of Bitcoin. You'll learn buying mining equipment in a bear market, using outside investment to speculative mine, begin mining once profit is established, sell mine crypto to pay for electricity, hold and prep for the bull run, sell at the top of the bull market, sell mining equipment at the top of the bull market, and begin investing in land and power so that you can bring in outside investors to utilize excess resources. Thanks everybody for your support, and I hope you enjoy the course. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section below.